We're having a conversation about affordable housing in the city and gentrification. Let's begin with a story out of the affluent Cleveland Park neighborhood. Have you seen this? The Sedgwick Garden Apartments sit on Connecticut Avenue, not far from the National Zoo. Now, the rent for a one-bedroom apartment is about $2,200 per month. Our partners over at the Washington Post report that in 2016, the D.C. government moved some homeless residents and some others into the building. Today, roughly half of the 140 apartments are rented to tenants who are using rent vouchers to pay most of their rent. The rule is they pay no more than 30% of their own income toward rent, with the city picking up the rest. The Post article questions whether the plan to mix the subsidized renters in the building with affluent tenants, some of who have been there for quite some time, whether or not the plan is actually working. Well, right now, let's bring in our guests. Bring them into the picture. I'm joined by at-large D.C. Councilmember Robert White and Department of Housing and Community Development Director Polly Donaldson. Polly, let me start with you with what's going on in that building. The Post would have us believe that these two groups of people, it's not really meshing. There's some cultural differences. There's some socioeconomic differences here. There's some drug use. There's some loudness, blah, blah, blah. What's going right? What's going wrong with this situation?
I think what's going right is that it's a great example of mixed income housing, meaning that many of our communities across the city are mixed income, and these can be too. With some of the formerly homeless residents who are there, I think it's critically important that there be a complete wraparound services program. And I know that our city agencies, Department of Human Services, are working there with the residents who need those services to ensure that they're getting them. That's the key to making mixed income housing, in this case, work.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of when St. E's and some of the other institutions closed down and we sent the people out into the community and the services did not come out with them. Mm-hmm. Is that partially what's happening here? And what about some kind of orientation to help the expectations of the people already there, what to expect?
I know that anyone who is going through our homeless system and is gets permanent housing with a voucher in a building such as the Sedgwick Gardens is to receive wraparound supportive services from qualified service providers in the city, and I know that that's what very much our Department of Human Services is working to implement.
Can anybody talk to this? Is the city having problems finding housing in the private sector that will take these vouchers and people that are renting, that are coming out of the shelters and from other places?
Finding housing is a challenge for everyone, including folks with vouchers, just because of the lack of availability. And so you have to take the opportunities when you get them. But Sedgwick Garden, just like anywhere else, when you have so many new people move into a building, especially when many of them come with their own mental health and other issues, it's going to be an issue.
So maybe too many people, maybe 50% is maybe too high.
That might be a little too much so quickly.
Okay, I want to move to gentrification, and more specifically, you hear, just like we do, just about every day, the people that have been here for the longest time, they want the development, they want all the pluses that come with gentrification and the good neighbors. The fear is that there won't be room for us, is what they're saying. Mm-hmm. Can we fix this? Can we all stay here and find a place to live?
Absolutely, and I think one of the most important things Mayor Bowser has done in her first term and will continue to do with her second term and with her fiscal year 20 budget is to make sure that we are preserving every affordable housing unit that we have. And she's adding to the preservation fund, for example, increasing that by 50% to $15 million from the city contribution, which actually leverages up to $60 million total.
Yeah.
What that means is you've got to put the resources into making sure that buildings don't convert to market, that we are preserving the affordable housing, that we're making it so anyone who has been here for 5 generations, like the mayor, can stay here.
Yeah, I heard the dollar figures. My question becomes, if you could translate that into people. I mean, those dollars don't buy as much as they used to. So how many families, how many people are we going to
So preserving, with the $10 million in this current year fiscal budget, we've been able to preserve over 1,000 units of affordable housing. So that's 1,000 families, average. I mean, that's at least 4,000 district residents who are here and able to stay here because their housing's being preserved.
Councilman, you got the budget, okay?
Yes.
Are they putting enough money in there for affordable housing?
Well, I mean, I applaud how much the mayor's put in. She's increased the amount over last year. I have to applaud that. But we as a city still aren't funding enough, and that falls both with the mayor and with the council. When we see that D.C. has really become ground zero for, forget gentrification, the issue is displacement. Displaced low-income income African American residents, we know that we have to do more. So more funding is the first step, but we also have to continue to push ourselves to fund more, to develop a strategic plan. There are people across the income spectrum struggling.
People are already concerned about the size of this budget, okay? There's only a finite amount of money. Is that a concern?
Well, I think the mayor has actually, in terms of her housing investments, raised an additional $103 million in revenue to invest in housing programs. And that's everything from the Housing Production Trust Fund, as Councilmember White said, but also it's for our homeless DC plan. It's also for our new workforce housing fund that will help middle income families and individuals who want to stay in the district, raise their families here, be here. Many of them children of long-term residents. We want them to stay. We want to make sure that we're creating housing opportunities across the income spectrum to make that happen. That's your teachers, your nurses, your social workers, your police and fire. I mean, these are working people who want to live and work in the district.
What else can the administration do?
Well, we have to fund more, I think. We really have to look at our budget closely. We have to understand that next year and the year after that, we're probably not going to bring in more revenue. So we really have to start to understand what our Housing Production Trust Fund is doing and start to really bring it in a little bit. I think our Housing Production Trust Fund is starting to do too much.
Are we talking about cutting programs somewhere else, though? I mean, you know, to meet these housing
I think
demands?
we need to invest more in housing, and I think that the mayor's plan and the mayor's investments are to do exactly that, to increase the number of units. We have absolutely streamlined and made all of our sources, all of our tools, and we have to continue to do that.
All right, okay, tell me if this is correct. $15.5 billion overall spending plan that the mayor has sent over to the
Yes.
council,
That's right.
an additional $55 million in programs to create, preserve affordable housing.
That's right.
And you're both
Exactly.
saying we need to do even more.
That's right.
All right, to continue this conversation.